Have you ever cried out to God, begging for another way, and still chose to trust Him? In a quiet garden beneath ancient olive trees, Jesus faced the greatest internal battle of His life. This is the story of surrender, not in defeat, but in love. It's about a moment that changed eternity, when the weight of all humanity's sin pressed down upon one man who could have walked away, but instead chose to stay. The night began in an upper room in Jerusalem. Jesus had just shared His final meal with the disciples, the Last Supper that would become sacred remembrance for billions of followers throughout history. The bread broken as His body would soon be, the wine poured as His blood would soon flow. Around the table sat men who had followed Him for 3 years, witnessing miracles and hearing teachings that transformed their understanding of God. Yet soon, they would all flee. As the evening deepened, Jesus led His followers through the narrow streets of Jerusalem. The city was swollen with Passover pilgrims, but Jesus sought solitude. They crossed the Kidron Valley, their path likely illuminated by the full Passover moon, to a place Jesus knew well, the Garden of Gethsemane, where ancient olive trees stood as silent witnesses to what would unfold. The air was still that night. Stars pierced the darkness above the Mount of Olives. This garden had once been a place of rest for Jesus, a retreat from the pressing crowds and demands of ministry. But tonight, it would become the battleground, where the fate of humanity would be decided not with swords, but in the silence of one man's heart. The very name Gethsemane means olive press, fitting for a place where Jesus would feel pressed from every side. "Stay here," Jesus told most of His disciples, perhaps sensing that what was to come was too intimate, too raw for many eyes to witness. But Peter, James, and John, His closest companions, He asked to come further. "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death," He confessed to them, allowing these friends to see His vulnerability. "Stay here and keep watch with me." Even the Son of God sought human companionship in His darkest hour. Then Jesus went just a little farther into the garden, away from even His closest friends. Sometimes our deepest spiritual battles must be faced alone. He fell to the ground, His body pressed against the earth He had created. The weight of what was coming crushed down upon Him. Not just physical torture, though that would be excruciating, but the spiritual agony of bearing the sins of all humanity. He who had never known sin would become sin for us. "Father," He cried out, His voice breaking the night's silence, "if it is possible, let this cup pass from me." The cup, in Jewish understanding, a powerful symbol of God's wrath against sin. This was not merely fear of pain. This was the Holy Son of God facing the unthinkable, separation from the Father with whom He had experienced perfect communion for all eternity. Yet even in this moment of deepest anguish, Jesus added the words that would change history. "Yet not my will, but yours be done." The Gospel of Luke tells us that His sweat fell like drops of blood, a rare medical condition called hematidrosis that occurs only under extreme distress. The Son of God was in such anguish that the capillaries near His skin's surface burst, mixing blood with His sweat. This was no calm acceptance. This was a devastating struggle, fought with every fiber of His being. Heaven itself seemed to respond to His agony, as an angel came to strengthen Him. Yet still He prayed more earnestly. 3 times Jesus returned to His disciples, hoping to find some comfort in their presence. 3 times He found them sleeping, their eyes heavy with sorrow and the lateness of the hour. "Could you not keep watch with me for 1 hour?" He asked them, his voice tinged with disappointment and understanding. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. How often are we like those disciples, unaware of the spiritual battles being fought around us, asleep when we should be alert? How often does Jesus find us unprepared in our own moments of testing? In that garden, Jesus could have walked away. No Roman soldiers had arrived yet. No betrayer's kiss had been given. The narrow path to Bethany was open. Safety was possible. But Jesus stayed. With every moment he remained in that garden, awaiting what he knew would come. He was choosing us. This is where we often miss the profound truth of Gethsemane. Jesus' greatest victory didn't begin at the cross. It began in the garden. Before a single nail pierced his flesh, he had already won the battle through surrender. Not my will, but yours. 5 words that bridged the gap between heaven and earth. 5 words that revealed the heart of the Son in perfect submission to the Father, even when that submission would lead through unimaginable darkness. In that moment, Jesus demonstrated what real love looks like. It isn't just warm feelings or kind words or comfortable promises. Sometimes, love is obedience in the face of unbearable sorrow. It's choosing the will of the Father over your own comfort. It's saying yes with tears streaming down your face when everything in you wants to say no. It's trusting that the Father's plan, though painful, leads to redemption beyond what we can see in our moments of agony. Every one of us will face our own Gethsemane moments, times when the path ahead seems too difficult to bear, when we cry out for another way, when the diagnosis comes, when the relationship ends, when the dream dies, when the betrayal cuts deep, when the burden feels too heavy and we fall to our knees, begging for the cup to pass from us. In those dark nights of the soul, remember, faith is not the absence of fear. It's trusting God in the midst of it. Jesus didn't avoid suffering, he walked directly into it. Not because suffering itself has value, but because sometimes the path through pain leads to resurrection. Jesus shows us that we can be honest about our desires, transparent about our fears, yet still choose obedience when God's answer is this way, through the valley. What makes Jesus' surrender so powerful is that he fully understood what awaited him. He knew every lash of the whip, every thorn in the crown, every labored breath on the cross. Yet he still said yes, not with stoic indifference, but with tears and trembling. His humanity shrank from suffering, even as his divinity embraced it for our sake. In this, we find both comfort and challenge. Comfort that Jesus understands our fears, and challenge to follow his example of trust. When your soul is in agony, remember the one who prayed through his pain and found strength in surrender. The one who knows exactly how it feels when the cup doesn't pass. The one who proves that sometimes God's greatest work begins in our darkest moments, and that surrender is not weakness, but the ultimate expression of strength. Not my will, but yours be done. These words echo through time, inviting us to find peace not in getting our way, but in trusting the Father's heart even when we cannot trace his hand. This is the paradox of faith, that in surrender, we find victory. In submission, we find freedom. In saying, not my will, we discover a deeper purpose than our own comfort could ever provide. Subscribe to Faith Stories for tomorrow's video as we walk with Jesus through his final hours.